Amanda is a 9-year-old little girl who disclosed to her teacher at school that her grandfather had been touching her. The disclosure was triggered because they were talking about Grandparents' Day in school, and Amanda became tearful and told this teacher, and fortunately this teacher was known to her and was a safe person for her to tell. Amanda was interviewed at the Child Advocacy Center, forensically interviewed by one of their trained investigators that does that type of interview, and then referred here to Catholic Charities Family Growth Program. The offender was her maternal grandfather. So she came for the intake with her mom and dad, and we did our initial assessments then. And it was I guess it was a few sessions after that we learned that the mother was also a survivor of sexual abuse when she was little, also at the hands of the same person, her father. Amanda's father is terribly distressed by this and felt that, his wife hadn't protected their daughter. And sadly, we understand that, Mom had her own distortions and her own distorted thinking patterns about what had happened to her and did not feel that her daughter was at risk.
Prosecution of these cases is very difficult, and you need to consider the needs of the child and the family first. And you also need to address with them up front the difficult road that they're going to be embarking on. Every case is different, every case is individual. One of the things that you realize is like, oh my God, you would think that a child who has been beaten or sexually abused, the reaction to that person would be, lock them up, throw away the key. And oftentimes it's not. Sometimes
children and families wonder why someone didn't tell right away, and we're able to help them understand that they didn't tell because of the trauma they were experiencing and because of the distortions that occurred due to the grooming of the offender. This is one of the reasons that these cases are so difficult to prosecute, because when children, particularly very young children, have sexual offenses perpetrated against them, it's usually by someone that they know and they trust, and the physical touching that they feel may feel something that is pleasurable or comfortable, but it's not until, say, a child of 5 or 6 maybe gets to be a little bit older and starts to realize that, hey, wait a minute, and just fill in the blank, whoever it might be, my father, my stepfather, my uncle, mom's boyfriend shouldn't be touching me in that way. With Amanda, she had a very close relationship with her grandfather, and he groomed her by making that relationship even closer, thereby making it harder for her to tell. So he bought her things, bought her little cupcakes and little treats, and the touching started very gradually. So Amanda just thought, well, this is my grandpa being affectionate. And by the time it moved into something that she clearly knew wasn't okay, she felt really trapped, and it became harder and harder for her to tell. Another thing that happened for our little Amanda, the grandpa threatened to hurt her sister, or threatened to abuse her sister. He basically said to her, if you tell, I'm going to touch your sister. So then when that day in school, when they were talking about grandparents, the floodgates kind of opened for her.
We're seeing a real difference since we have implemented the evidence-based treatment that we use. We initially trained in the trauma-focused cognitive behavior therapy, and we found that it wasn't treatment itself wasn't all that different than what we had been doing, but it was much more structured. So we're finding our length of stay is a little bit shorter, and we're able to actually document our outcomes. And this is a real advantage to the families. They're able to see their symptoms diminish, and also our clinicians. It's really gratifying for them to see that the work they do really does result in better outcomes for families.
We know that our kids leave our program with skills to help with trauma and the after effects, like to help them with nightmares or flashbacks and things they might be experiencing.